Senator, amid these tensions we've been talking about with North Korea this morning, the Washington Post is reporting that President Trump has instructed advisors to prepare to withdraw from a free trade agreement with South Korea. Do you think that's the right thing to do now?
No, not at all. I don't think that that would be good in any circumstances. Now it's particularly troubling given what South Korea is faced with. I think we need to do more trade, not less, and withdrawing from trade agreements is a very troubling sign.
I want to ask you about what's known as DACA, the Obama-era program that shields young documented immigrants who were brought to the U.S. by their parents, shields them from deportation. You tweeted the following on Friday: Congress needs to take immediate action to protect DACA kids. But let me show you what President Trump promised during the campaign in your home state of Arizona.
We will immediately terminate President Obama's 2 illegal executive amnesties in which he defied federal law and the Constitution to give amnesty to approximately 5 million illegal immigrants. 5 million.
Senator, the president said he's going to make a decision soon. Why should he go back on this promise, which was very popular among Republicans in places like your state?
Because it would be the right thing to do, to go back on a promise. Obviously, you hope that presidents keep some of their campaign promises, and you hope that they ignore others. This is one that he ought to ignore. There are 800,000 DACA kids who were brought across the border. The median age, I think, is 6 years old for those 800,000 when they came across the border. They should not be punished for the sins of their parents. That's just the basic principle that we ought to follow here. They are either in school or have graduated and are working. Almost all of them, I think 90-some% of them, are in the workforce. To remove them from the country, to split up families like this, is just not the way we ought to go.
And Senator, if the president says that he will extend the protections for Dreamers, but do it in exchange for funding from Congress, from you, for his border wall, would you go along with that compromise?
Obviously, all of us believe in border security. It depends on what he means by the wall, and we still really haven't seen what he means by the wall. If that's a metaphor for border security, we can certainly support that. But if he's talking about a solitary brick and mortar 2,000-mile edifice on the border, then no, nobody ought to support that. So we really haven't seen what the president is really talking about when he talks about the wall.
Let's talk about you and President Trump. He really is on a mission to defeat your reelection. As a fellow Republican, he's called you a flake. He says you're toxic, and he has promoted your Republican primary opponent, Kelly Ward. I want you to listen to more of what the president said about you on your home turf just this past week.
Nobody wants me to talk about your other senator who's weak on borders, weak on crime, so I won't talk about him. Nobody knows who the hell he is.
Senator, what makes you think that you can win your Republican primary in your state with the president attacking you and you going after him?
The people in Arizona tend to elect independent-minded, principled senators, Barry Goldwater, John McCain. I think the voters here expect me to have my own franchise, to represent them, not to be a rubber stamp for the president. So I'm quite comfortable being where I am. I would hate to be tethered to any president, Republican or Democrat, in every position they take. That's not what a senator is supposed to do.
But Senator, 88% of Republicans in your home state of Arizona voted for Donald Trump in November. You might be right about the general voters in Arizona, but we're talking about an intra-Republican war that one of the battlefields is right there, and you're leading the charge against the Trump voters.
No, that's not the case. What I'm doing is voting on a conservative basis. That's my philosophy. I will support the president when I believe he's right. I've supported many of the agenda items that he's put forward. I'll oppose those that I think he's wrong on. Things like NAFTA, for example. I think NAFTA has been good for Arizona. It's been good for Mexico. It's been good for Canada. It's been good for the entire country. Those kind of things that will damage Arizona I won't support the president on, but on most things I do. That's what I do with every president. That's what the voters in Arizona expect me to do.
Senator, I want to turn, before I let you go, to Russia and escalating tensions with Russia. Officials there are protesting American intentions to search Russian diplomatic facilities, one here in Washington in particular, and they call it a hostile act. But do you think that Russia's interference in America's election, wasn't that just that, a hostile act?
Well, obviously, Russia did try to intervene and did try to meddle in our elections. That's a settled matter. What we do with regard to diplomatic facilities is governed by conventions and protocols that are in place. Obviously, we don't run afoul of those, and Russia shouldn't either. But Russia is an adversary. I think that we ought to, if we don't, we ought to continue to recognize that. So I'm certainly supportive of us recognizing them as an adversary.
And lastly, Senator, the leaders here in Washington, your Republican leaders, the White House, they're preparing to potentially attach this popular bill to help victims of Hurricane Harvey to a controversial measure to increase the nation's debt limit. Do you support this move?
Well, we don't know how it's going to come forward. I know that we desperately need to help those who have been through this horrific situation in Texas and Louisiana. We'll do so. We'll also raise the debt ceiling. Raising the debt ceiling is simply paying for bills that you've already accrued. We obviously need to be concerned about our growing deficit and our massive debt, but the debt limit is not the place to do that on. And obviously, we've got to provide assistance to those in Texas and Louisiana.
Okay, just to be clear, you are okay with, you will support financial assistance, federal assistance for Harvey?
Oh, obviously, what we're talking about this coming week is immediate emergency assistance.
Right.
Kind of the down payment, and I don't think you'll have much argument there.
Okay. Senator, thank you so much. Appreciate your time this morning.